everybody. This is the April 7, 2022 meeting of the Bolton Select Board. First on our agenda tonight is we have a guest, State Representative Kate Hogan is with us this evening to give us an update on some things happening with the State House budget. Good evening and welcome, Representative Hogan. Oh, you're muted. You're muted. Yeah.
Are we better now?
Ah,
you can both
perfect.
see and hear me?
There you go.
Oh gosh, at least once a day. Is that not the truth? So I just wanted to thank everybody for inviting me, as you do every year, to come and address you. Good to see you, Jonathan and Stanley, as well, and always the illustrious John Lowe. Jenny, good to see you as well. So it has been both a year and in many ways great opportunities and stunning times that we live in. We're very focused right now on helping communities across Massachusetts, and of course my community is always, and in particular, continue to recover from COVID-19. For all that's been done, we're proud of all the help and assistance, and also the assistance my office has been able to offer over these last 2 years. We settled in again to a budget, month of budget, and April brings us information that will be important to us throughout the following 12 months. But we know the governor's budget has come out and that he has increased local funding by about 3%. And it will be, it'll be something that changes. These budget numbers are always moving targets. So I hate to say that is anything that will be the final. I think that things increase as we move from the House budget to the Senate budget. If our revenues continue to increase as they have, we know first, foremost, and always is local aid, Chapter 70, and that is where we go always in our first venture beyond as we begin our own way through the budget. I'm also very proud of the ongoing partnership that we've had with Bolton and Bolton town leaders. We're very, very proud of the transportation bill, Chapter 90 funds for Bolton, which stand at about $289,000. The bill was $30 million for repairs of small bridges, $30 million for complete streets, and $40 million for improvements to non-federally aided roadways. And so we're very, very proud of that as we were able to bring out our $350 million transportation aid package. ARPA spending, we know we have done very well in Bolton. We'll continue to do this year and into next year, depending on how we'll be spending our monies. But we know that $400,000 for our new culvert on Bush Mill Road was really important in terms of being able to have that very large project completed. And we were so happy to have all of you on a very, very, very frosty day last month to celebrate with our federal partners, state partners. It was a great day for Hudson. I mean, a great day for Bolton, and I was very, very pleased. We've also had other successes in our other towns as well. We're proud of them. The Neshoba Cadet EMT program. We were so glad to get that waiver. It was a great deal of work. I'm not sure why so hard, but we were able to achieve that waiver and continue on with the program. I just think it is absolutely one of the premier high school programs in the state, and really will continue to fight to make it both something that is a waiver that doesn't take so much time to continue, and a program that everyone knows to be critically important in a time where we really need as many trained EMTs as possible. Someone coming in at 16, 17, 18 to train are going to, go on to do amazing things for years and years afterwards. Other things that we've learned from the pandemic, for voting, we've learned we can quickly pivot and use technology to safeguard local elections, town meetings, and have done that through a number of pieces of legislation, and will continue to. We have a remote open meeting law extended to July 15th, which authorizes public bodies to continue meeting remotely. COVID-19 temporary emergency paid sick leave program has been extended to April 1st. Remote notarization authorization extended to July 15th. Tenant protections, assisted living facilities, many of these things have been extended. We're also happy to say outdoor dining and cocktails, not so much for Bolton, but I know anyone that uses our other towns know how much that will help them continue to survive and continue hopefully to move into a better place. But they're able to do that. People will come, and it really helps the economy, and it helps our small business. So those are some of the things that we have been doing most recently, and we've also really spent a lot of time deciding how and when we will be spending our ARPA funds, and look to towards July or that part of the year to begin to look and see if that's where we're going to be spending the rest of our ARPA funds. We'll certainly be keeping in touch with our towns. And I know that Dawn and I probably have conversations about every 3 months about what projects are most important and how we can be helpful. And we'll continue to do so as we move forward. There have been a number of bills that are of importance to us, including access to adoptee birth certificates, which I was a sponsor of, and very, very happy to see that move through the House. We hope it moves through the Senate. It basically allows adoptees born between 1974 and 2008 to access their original birth certificates. They have not been able to, somehow as part of the bill that was passed. And so definitely something that I'm looking to ensure. I'm working on a PFAS report that will be out shortly, we hope in April, which is this month, if you look at the calendar. So hopefully that will be out, and we'll be looking at how we may be able to see opportunities to assist with that in legislation. I'll be looking at putting together a 21st Century Farms Commission to bring stakeholders together in environmental affairs, energy, economic development. It's basically a conversation important to agriculture and farmers, and how we begin to develop better sustainable practices, both economic and environmental, to help the family farm and assist farms as they move into this 21st century. They were the canaries in the mine for climate change, and we have been catching up with them and what they know and how they're able to deal with climate change, and also how they have been able to create sustainable models over the years, so that they don't just depend on what may be what they're growing this year, but on other things as well, including solar, now wind, though we're not particularly a windy area ourselves, but this would allow us to be able to look at what might be ways to help extend how they're able to keep their, keep the farms going, and what would be helpful to them. We also had a work and family mobility bill that passed very recently. I call it sort of another COVID bill, very important. It really does allow for improvement in public safety by ensuring undocumented immigrants, many of whom might choose to drive without a license, to undergo proper road testing and education before getting behind the wheel. It ensures all drivers have standardized identification, insurance, and road safety, very much supported by members of in the public safety community. And I think it was an important piece of legislation, especially those people that are going out to do the jobs that were were most dangerous and not even be able to have transportation to get there. I think it was a very good move by the House, and I hope to see it pass the Senate. And we also passed the wind bill, and this is going to be great. It's an act advancing offshore wind, clean energy. It includes economic and workforce development incentives. It's meant to spur investment for offshore wind industry in Massachusetts. We've fallen behind as leaders, and this is Speaker Mariano's foray into grabbing the bull by the horn and really trying to create Massachusetts as a place to go for creation of clean energy. And this is, I think, going to be a generational bill that'll be very important in what it's able to do. So those are some of the bills that we've passed. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I think that it has been an incredible year. It has been an incredible 2 years. And I know how hard it has been for those people on the local and municipal level too, to provide what people need. And I thank you for your service during this time. And I am just feeling very positive as we move through. I know that we have to be careful with surges. I know that we have to understand that we need to stay safe in all matters as we come together here in a virtual environment. But I also know that we are going to be moving forward. And I really enjoy my partnership with everyone here, and I enjoy seeing what we can do to help Bolton move forward. And so I also want to thank you for taking up the proclamation that I sent over for Pride Month, and I hope that you will pass that this evening in your meeting as well. So I'm here. Are there any questions anyone might have, or requests that I can take away and get back to you with? Is that Jonathan?
Bob, you're muted.
Bob, you're muted.
I thought I was being so careful on that one too. I just wanted to thank you very much for attending this evening. We appreciate you coming, bringing in an update, your support and help in terms of past projects here in town, the culvert for Bush Mill, as you mentioned, and many other things, the cadet EMT program. We are having a presentation later this evening on from Mass DEP on PFAS. So that report coming out in a couple of weeks will be very timely. And obviously, as a town that has a huge agricultural component, the work you're doing on the farms and the climate change is going to be very important to everybody in this town. So I don't have any specific questions, but I do appreciate your time and the attention that you bring to Bolton. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob.
Are there any other questions or comments?
No, Kay, I second Bob's comments. You're doing a tremendous amount of work, and we greatly appreciate what you're doing for the town of Bolton, and certainly anything we can do to help you, to help us, just let us know.
And it is so important to, and I see more and more that Bolton is really coming together to have a vision for the town, where they want to go, where the projects are that will be substantive and change the direction of the town, to begin to move it forward in ways that maybe it hasn't moved forward before. And it's so critical because it allows us in the legislature and our federal partners to be of help. And so thank you all for your vision and stick-to-itiveness to so many of the projects that you have on your list to get done. And culverts. I know that.
Yeah. Representative Hogan, I wanted to thank you for your support on all of our many different grant applications, especially the intersection at the high school. That's going to be so important for the safety of our students and everybody who drives through town. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, John.
And Representative Hogan, you mentioned how you talk with Don Lowe, our town administrator, every quarter or so, every couple of months about the ARPA funds. But it seems to me that you're really talking to him on a weekly basis, at least weekly. And well, you or your office is talking to Don, excuse me, at least once a week on a variety of issues. It changes week to week. There's a lot of information going back and forth between your office and Don Lowe's office. We really recognize and appreciate, and it's not, all of that is not visible to most people. So
Exactly.
we really appreciate the effort that you and the people in your office provide to Don and the people in Bolton as a whole.
Thank you.
That's very true, Mr. Chairman. I couldn't ask for a better partner than Representative Hogan and her staff. She has an excellent staff. And Representative Hogan works tirelessly for us. And you're right. I mean, most of it the public never sees, but I certainly see it and I certainly appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, when I saw you all at the event where we were celebrating the big win for Bolton, it was really a great morning. As cold as it was, I was my heart was warm.
Well, once again, thank you very much.
Yes,
And we
absolutely.
appreciate the support you give to us.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a great
Thank you,
meeting.
Kate.
Bye.
Thank you.
You too.
Good evening.
Bye-bye.
All right. Next up on the agenda is a request from the Neshoba Area Social Justice Alliance. They have several requests. One is to accept an official proclamation on LGBTQIA and to make the month of, declare the month of June 2022 Pride Month, and to fly the Pride flag at the Town Common flagpole. And I believe we have Sarah Kashik to speak to this tonight. Good
Yeah.
evening. Would you like to introduce yourself and the Social Justice Alliance? And then
Sure, thank
we
you.
can move on to the proclamation.
That sounds good. Thank you very much. I want to thank Town Administrator Lowe, Ms. Jacobson, and the Select Board members for your time and consideration. I really do greatly appreciate it. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the Neshoba Area Social Justice Alliance and as an ally to the LGBTQIA community. I promise to be very brief with the following statement. The second leading cause of death among young people is suicide, and queer youth are more than 4 times as likely to attempt suicide than their peers. Whether we want to admit it or not, we have kids in town who are at risk. And I'm here because I believe that it's imperative that our town take action to affirm and to support, to amplify, and to celebrate our LGBTQ community, and especially our youth. So the agenda items I propose, I think will send a strong message of inclusion and belonging in Bolton. So I want to thank you again for your time.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to ask Jenny, do you have a copy that you can display? And the proclamation, I will also read it. And that is Proclamation of Pride Month, June 2022. Whereas the town of Bolton strives to be a welcoming community and a good place to live. And whereas Bolton recognizes and values diversity of its residents and people everywhere. And whereas Bolton recognizes and values the contribution that each and every resident makes to work, improve recreation, and civic life in our town. And whereas LGBTQIA plus members of our town are full and participating members of our community. And whereas we all appreciate the rich tapestry of ethnic, cultural, racial, sex, and gender identities of the residents of our town. And whereas LGBTQIA plus youth are at especially high risk of experiencing discrimination, mistreatment, and even violence, and have increased suicide rates, and the town is committed to ensure that they are safe, valued, and supported. Now, therefore, be it resolved that June 2022 be declared Pride Month in the town of Bolton, and that all residents be encouraged to recognize and acknowledge the contributions of the LGBTQIA plus members of our community as we continue to advance the principles of liberty, equity, and inclusivity for all. And I would like to point out that Senator Kate Hogan was instrumental in helping draft this document. So Once again, she's enriching the opportunities for members of residents of Bolton. Are there any questions or comments from the other members of the select board?
No, this is Stan. I fully support this. Absolutely.
I support it as well.
Okay, well, I look forward to passing it then. Could I have a motion to do so?
Make a motion that we accept the official proclamation on LGBTQIA and to make the month of June 2022 Pride Month.
Second,
Let's do a roll call, please. Jonathan,
aye.
Stan,
Aye.
and I am a yes also. Thank you. On the issue of flying the pride flag from the town common flagpole, that's kind of problematic at this time from my personal point of view. I should say from my official point of view, as opposed to a personal point of view. And the reason is that there's a lawsuit against the town, against the city of Boston regarding its flying of flags. And I realize that this is not in the realm of religion like that is. But I think my feeling is that the flagpole in the center of town should be reserved for the state and national flag. And we might want to come up with some other avenue or venue to show the pride flag. So I don't know how other members of the board feel about that.
Well, this is Stan. I agree with you, Bob. And I think the flagpole that's flying the United States of America flag and potentially the state flag and whatever other national flag, I think you have an issue of setting a precedent where if we allow this flag to fly, then we could potentially have groups with opposing views, white nationalists, and all sorts of folks wanting to fly their flags on the flagpole. And I think, to your point, Bob, I think the flagpole should be reserved for U.S. flag, the state flag, town flag. If we ever have any opportunity to have visiting dignitaries from other countries, their national flags, and potentially the flags of the armed services. But I think we need to draw a line, just the fact that we are potentially setting a precedent and past practice, which could open this up to flags that we really do not want to fly. I have no problem personally, to your point, Bob, with this flag, but I think we need to reserve it for flags of a national nature, national and state nature.
Okay, Jonathan?
I just wanted to follow up with Ms. Kashik. Do you understand kind of what our concerns are
I do.
to that?
Yeah, I want to thank you so much for passing the proclamation. I really appreciate that, as well as declaring June Pride Month. I'm wondering if there's an alternative, so maybe perhaps not the flagpole. I very much understand your reasoning, but is there another central location on the common from the pavilion or the gazebo where it would not be on the pole or underneath the US flag, but in another location for the month of June as an alternative?
I guess.
Do you have a stand it could go on or something like that, or some way to fly it?
From like the pavilion or?
Well, I'll be blunt about what I'm thinking of is that the town common is nominally under the authority of the Parks and Recs Department.
Mhm.
And they could certainly, if they gave you permission to do that, put it up there, I'd be fine with that.
Okay,
But I don't want to basically blow you off here and tell you to go talk to Parks and Rec and anything else like that. So I'm trying to think if there's some avenue to fly the flag at town hall
Mhm.
in someplace other than on a flagpole that the selectmen have more direct responsibility for. And I certainly want to get our town administrator's opinion on that if he thinks there might be any issues.
I would be happy with either location. I wouldn't feel blown off at all. I think the town hall is a great idea, and I'm also happy to go in front of Parks and Recreation. Both are very central locations. And I just think it's important that it's seen because it sends such a strong message of inclusion as you're coming down Main Street.
I wonder if there's an opportunity to provide smaller flags for, private property along Main Street or around town as a way of showing support that doesn't get into the thorny issues that we've discussed with other types of flags. So
Mr. Chairman, my thinking, well, first of all, I would also like to say that my professional opinion is separate from my personal opinion. And I think we're all in agreement on that. A location on municipal property doesn't do away with the concerns that the board is expressing as far as setting the precedent for other groups that we may not be as comfortable with to seek flying their flag or emblem or banner or whatever it may be. Once a precedent is set, a precedent is set. And then it becomes one of judgment of, well, we're going to agree to this, but not to this. And that's where a town from a legal perspective can get into problems. I would be delighted to try to work with Sarah and the group to come up with some recommendations. I mean, Jonathan's idea of smaller flags that could be distributed to people on Main Street or main thoroughfares in general to make it obvious of the level of support that they have, I think is a very interesting idea. I continue to worry about the precedent it sets for placing any group's flag or banner or insignia of any kind on municipal property. That from a town administrator's perspective, that's what I worry about.
Now I see your point.
Out of curiosity, have you had any requests from any other groups prior to this?
No, we have not.
Okay. So it's a concern for the future.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
nationally, there have been lawsuits about issues like this.
Mhm,
Government supporting some groups and not others.
mhm.
So it could open us up to a lawsuit that
Mhm.
expensive and lengthy.
Yeah.
That we might lose. So.
Is anyone aware of other towns that have, gotten around this? I know Worcester, Framingham have all flown the pride flag on municipal poles. Is anyone aware of how other towns have been able to do this?
Well, Worcester and Framingham are cities which may or may not make any difference. It could just be the fact, it could be as simple as no one's pushed the issue yet and no one's wanted to try to be a test case for, okay, so we're seeing this flag flying, so I'm going to take my organization and I'm going to see if they will fly mine as well. I just don't know if it's been tested yet, quite honestly.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, basically what I'm trying to say, they do it at their own risk and they realize that, it may well come back at some point where they get someone of the group. They also have, I mean, the city of Worcester is the second largest city in the state and have substantial financial resources to be able to deal with a lawsuit if one comes forward where
Mhm.
we really don't.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, Mary Kioma? You're muted.
On mute, Mary. You're still on mute.
Yeah, so how about the railing at Pond Park? And I'm not talking a flag, but I do know a flyer, banners are put up there.
I actually thought of that. It's still municipal property.
Okay.
Um,
Mr. Chairman, I think we need to take this under advisement, but I don't think we are in a position to be able to provide an answer this evening. And we might.
Um,
not be able to
Is it
provide an answer.
appropriate? How about we put it on the next meeting agenda again?
We could certainly do that. Absolutely.
Okay. So you know, so we'll put the issue of the pride flag
Mhm.
and generally flags in general on our agenda again for our next meeting.
Okay,
And I'm sorry we don't have a better solution for you at this time.
I appreciate the discussion. I do have one follow-up question, and I'll attend the next meeting. I noticed that the proclamation in June as being declared as Pride Month is solely for 2022. So I just wanted to know, will I need to reappear in 2023 in the hopes that it will be passed again next year? Is it an annual?
That's been the custom. There's certainly no laws or bylaws around that, but that has
Okay.
been the custom. I would refer to you to the senior proclamation that we've been doing for years, and it is
Mhm.
something that we do on an annual basis.
Okay,
So,
Yeah,
you
It's
know,
an opportunity to kind of publicize the month.
okay.
Right. Yeah, I think in a positive way, you're able to come back in again and publicize it.
Yeah. it's an
Sure, okay.
and I would urge you, if you have any ideas of a banner or something other than a flag or some other method of display that
Mhm,
would open up other opportunities, to get in touch with Mr. Lowe.
mhm.
And he'd be happy to collect your suggestions and pass them along to us.
Okay, I can do
Uh,
that.
You know, the more avenues we have, the better we'll be able to come up with some solutions. And I think generally the select board needs to come up with a written policy on flags and other things like this.
Okay. Thank you again.
All right, thank you very much, and good luck with the Social Justice Alliance.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is an update from Town Moderator Doug Story on plans for the annual town meeting, which is, mark your calendars, Monday, May 2nd, 2022. Doug was here.
He's here now.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. There you go.
I
You
just,
got the floor.
I just muted myself out and took myself out during that conversation. So we have had a couple of meetings, and we are preparing for town meeting and looking forward to, I hope, what will be a more traditional town meeting, in the sense that obviously we've been through the pandemic the last 2 years, and in those 2 years we held town meetings that allowed for people to be outside and inside, and we went to extraordinary lengths, primarily on the end of Bolton Access TV, to, provide that access. This year, we're going to hold the meeting indoors at the auditorium at the high school, as we've done previously. I am, of the mind that the short warrant this year will probably not lead to, anything other than a normal turnout, which we should easily be able to accommodate in that room and still allow people to have space if they want space. We have discussed having a section set aside for people who want to wear masks. Obviously, at this point in time, mask wearing is a personal choice. Some people want to do that and feel it's important, and that's very, very important that they have the right to do that. And some people choose not to. So we want to give everyone the opportunity to feel like they are safe in the format that we're offering it this year. The only other thing that is potentially a change for us on the horizon for our town meeting is that we did apply for a grant and received it and purchased 300 remote counting devices that would allow us to do a contested count on a very, quick process, as opposed to sending people out to count ballots where people hold them up in the air. It's very new to us. We haven't used it yet. We're in the process of training and learning how to use it. So we hope to have them ready for town meeting. And in the event that we do, I think it's likely this year we'll just do a test vote and try the equipment out. It's not my intent to use the equipment on every vote. And really, it's not my intent to do that going forward either. I think, at Bolton Town Meeting, we have many votes that are unanimous and that don't require any sort of, count on a device like that. But whenever we have a count that's contentious or close, and we do have to go to a ballot count, it makes sense to have that technology available to us that can do that in a more quickly than otherwise we've done in the past. So that's it. We hope to be able to test that out. I'm optimistic, but we're still training on that. Are there any questions?
What time does town meeting start on Monday, May 2nd?
So Monday, May 2nd will be at 7 p.m., 7 o'clock and that's the traditional time.
At the high school.
At the high school auditorium.
Sounds good.
And I just want to remind everyone, I know you do this as well, but the town election is 1 week following, and we hope that everyone will turn out for that and turn out for both the town meeting and the town election.
Any other questions or comments from the board? No, well, we're looking forward to it. So thank you very much, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
I'll see you all soon.
Yeah, take care.
Great. Thanks.
Next, we have Bolton Youth Baseball and a request to hold a parade on Saturday, April 30th at 11:45 a.m. Is someone from Bolton Youth Baseball here? Hello.
Hi, Tiffany Hoffman's here.
Hi, welcome, Tiffany. Tell us what's going on.
Thank you. Yes. So in keeping up with old traditions that haven't happened in a few years because of COVID, we are hoping to have opening day again for all of the baseball, t-ball, and softball teams in town. So the plan is to gather at the Common prior to 11:45 and start the parade from the Common to the fields on Wattaquatic. But we're going to go down via the school, similar to the Halloween parade, and then go into the school parking lot. So the road would probably have to be closed for, I don't know, probably 30 minutes max. We have spoken with the Bolton Police, and they are able to provide us detail to make sure that everything is safe. And I know a concern in the past has been to not have candy thrown. So the candy will not be thrown. It would just be a parade literally of the teams going down down Main Street, turning right onto Mechanic, going by the schools, and then going to the fields so that we can continue the festivities of opening day with some T-ball and baseball and softball games.
Great.
Okay, very good. I see, we have a letter from the chief saying that this is all set. So could I
Yes.
have a motion to approve the request from Bolton Youth Baseball to hold a parade?
I'll make a motion that we approve the request for Bolton Youth Baseball to hold their parade on Saturday, April 30th at 11:45 in the morning.
Second,
A roll call, Jonathan,
aye.
Stan,
Aye.
I'm a yes also.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very
Thank you.
much,
Good
Tiffany.
luck.
Thank you very
Good
much.
luck.
Enjoy your spring.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good parade.
Thank you. We will. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Next, we have a request from the Neshoba Valley Winery to construct a subterranean building and wastewater treatment facility on APR land. Is Rich Pelletier or somebody from Neshoba Valley Winery here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Hi, Rich.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. Why don't you give us some
Rich.
background about what you're going to do and specifically what you're asking or need from us?
Okay, well, this is really a preliminary step in multiple steps that's going to have to take place in order for us to accomplish what we're talking about this evening, because you'll have another chance to review everything in a little bit more detail later on because of our restriction with the town under the Agricultural Act, that any building has to be approved by your board. So we're not really at that point just yet. We're really at a preliminary point where the first thing we wanted to do was go to the APR and see if they would have any real interest in even allowing us to pursue this as a plan. And their response has been very positive. But they also said since the town is a co-holder, that they would be looking for the town to say that from an APR restriction perspective, this plan would be acceptable. The plan is basically, if anybody, and it's really, I think when the APR folks came out, they realized once they stood on the land, how unusable the land really was. It's just after below the restaurant, we have Vignola grapes that are planted, and then there's a deep gully, and then it rises up again, and we have St. Croix grapes, and the terrain there is steep. We used to have some plantings there, but I was about the only one stupid enough to drive the tractor down the terrain without it tipping over. Unfortunately, age has stalled my
Taking the
enthusiasm.
thrill out of that?
Yeah, Evil Knievel in me has kind of waned a little bit. So we have this gully. And so we've been looking to rent. We currently rent additional space for storage and everything. And with my son, Justin, we started saying, well, if we basically dug out this hole just a little bit more, we'd be able to put a fairly substantial building in there with a flat roof, back the soils back up to the building and create like a cave environment, so that we'd have storage on the property, but really without the visibility of an additional building. We've had a couple ideas and we still are pursuing ideas whether or not we could do a small greenhouse on top of it, whether or not, more picnic tables on top of it, or whether or not even solar panels might be justified to be on top of it. But that's all a little bit further down the road. Once we get into the more detailed planning of the building and how it's going to be situated. Right now, we're just basically seeking permission from the town to say from a APR restriction standpoint, they would consent to allowing this building, provided the state APR commission approved it.
So do you need a vote from us tonight? You indicated before that this was preliminary, but at the end, are you looking? Yeah.
The state will not approve it from an APR standpoint unless the co-holders of the restriction also approved it. So when I stated that it was preliminary in the sense that I'm still gonna have to come back before the board with a final design, and you're gonna have to approve the entire building under the agricultural, I forget the exact name of it. Don, help me out here.
I'm thinking under the agricultural exemption, but you're right. I mean, basically, the board needs to indicate to Mr. Pelletier tonight that at this point they have no objections so that he can proceed with the state. And then he does have to come back with the final plan.
Okay.
Yeah, because there has to be, I operate, with the festivals and everything like that under an agricultural bylaw that the town passed when we bought the winery. And in that bylaw, or in my permit to that bylaw, it states that any new building to be constructed on site has to come before the selectmen to be approved. So that also requires notice to the abutters. So we're not trying to get approval for that aspect of it tonight. We're
Right.
trying to,
You're just
Go ahead.
taking our temperature.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it
so
sounds
would
good.
it be reasonable that to take a vote that we support the concept? And that we're favorable to what Mr. Pelletier is looking to do? Is that sufficient at this point in time?
I believe it would be. I think they're just saying that in concept, a building in that location is acceptable under the provisions of the APR, and you can even put in there a contingency without waiving our rights under the agricultural bylaw that Mr. Pelletier operates under.
Right.
I like Don's language, which was that we didn't, what was it, Don? We didn't disapprove.
We didn't
of it.
object.
We don't object to this,
Concept, yeah.
this proposal as it is now. I did want to ask you about the wastewater treatment facility. Is that just for wine and liquor that spills and goes down the drain, or you're talking about sewage?
I believe we are talking about sewage that's still in the preliminary stages right now. Currently, we have tight tanks, except for the restaurant. The restaurant has its own septic system, which was approved, but the winery itself operates with trailers for bathrooms and storage tanks, as well as a tight tank. And the goal would be to eliminate that tight tank, treat the waste, and then put that into our septic system. Again, that's going to involve state approval, local approval, Board of Health approval. It would be a system that has been tested and is used throughout the country, but it has not been used in Massachusetts and not received approval in Massachusetts. So it's a mini wastewater treatment plant. Right now, we're putting it into tanks that we pay to have it hauled away at the cost of roughly $60,000 a year, which is not sustainable.
Well, I think that's a good use of that piece of, this is the piece of land that you can see as you turn left off of Wattaquatic onto Berlin. It's the piece of land right in front of you then, there, right?
When you turn off of Berlin, going up the hill to Wattaquatic, it's probably a little bit closer to Main Street than the entrance on the right-hand side to the Bolton Conservation Trust land that we farm.
Okay.
So if you took the entire length of our property on Wattaquatic Hill Road, it's roughly in the middle of that length. The town has actually done a better job or a good job of, at one time, all the water from Wattaquatic Hill Road used to actually drain off into this swale hollow that's there, and tractors would get stuck maybe 3 and 4 times a year, we don't get them stuck, but we also don't drive down there as frequently as we used to.
So is this on the east or west side of Wattaquatic?
It is on the east or west side. So
I would say your restaurant's on the east side of Wattaquatic.
it's on the east side. So if you took the restaurant
Yeah,
and then coming towards town, you have the restaurant parking lot,
yeah,
and then you have a planting of grapes. And then you have a steep hill that goes down right on Wattaquatic. That grade is probably, I would guess, around 15 to 20 degrees. And then it bottoms out about maybe I would say as much as 20 feet below the top of the hill, and then elevates back up at a 35-degree angle, probably also about 20 feet to a second planting of grapes.
okay, okay. I think it sounds like a good use of that space.
Yeah, I think if you go out there and, when APR came out, they looked at it and they said, oh, the pictures don't show how bad of a area this is. And they were pretty positive, like there's nothing else you're going to be able to do with this land.
Right,
Okay.
I just say, as you said, you've kind of done some napkin sketches for us, and any project like this in town would have like real plans done, engineering and that sort of thing. So that's what I'd like to see.
Well, it's got to go through the other boards, right? It's probably got to go through conservation, certainly got to go through the Board of Health.
I would say conservation. I mean, we run everything by conservation, but I don't think there's going to necessarily, there'll probably be a meeting on site just to make sure there is no wetland vegetation. I think
Okay.
we're pretty far away from all of that. But again, once the APR says, yes, this is something you can proceed, then we would start spending money to formalize the plan and get some drawings, and probably not full structurals, but we would be now presenting a conceptual plan to, again, your board first, because the septic system and the other other structures are kind of separate. But it has to come back to you guys, because any building to be constructed on the property, has to go through, I'm supposed to give notice, I believe, to my neighbors to let them look at it before I come to you. And then I can come to you with their concerns, and also conceptual plan of what we're going to do. And then you guys get to consider it under the town agricultural bylaw. And then after that, then it's, standard construction procedure. Board of Health is going to be involved, building commission is going to be involved, all the way down plumbing, electrical, everybody else gets a shot.
Okay, so could I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we support at this point the Neshoba Valley Winery request to construct a subterranean building and wastewater treatment facility on APR land, which is the Neshoba Valley Winery.
Is there a second?
Second,
All those, roll call. Jonathan,
aye.
Stan,
Aye.
I am a yes also.
Great. Thank you guys very much. Really appreciate it.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you.
Mike.
Good luck.
All righty. Thanks.
Now we have a presentation from the Mass Department of Environmental Protection on private well sampling for PFAS, which I will allow them to pronounce. Hi, who do we have?
Hi, this is Mary Jude Pigsley. I'm the Regional Director of the Mass DEP office in Worcester, which covers the central region, 77 cities and towns in the beautiful middle part of the state. With me tonight is Andrea Briggs, who's our Deputy Regional Director for the Bureau of Administrative Services, who is our liaison with boards of health, takes citizens inquiries. And just to piggyback on the last issue, I don't know if Mr. Pelletier is still on the phone, but Andrea Briggs can schedule a pre-permitting meeting with the winery to talk about the wastewater discharge, because they will probably have to come and talk to us. So Mr. Pelletier needs to get Andrea's number and reach out to us on that wastewater stuff. So I do want to just run very quickly through the slide deck. I think the members have seen that. And Jenny, I don't know if you were going to put it up or I need to screen share. So we wanted to talk about is a private well sampling program that the state is offering to 85 towns in the Commonwealth where more than 60% of the people are on private wells, not on a public water supply. So I'll talk first about what PFAS is and then about signing up for an implementation of the private well program. So the next slide. The PFAS stands for per and polyfluoral alkyl substances. They are things that are sticky, or prevent non-stick, sorry, things that are slippery. They're in dental floss, things like the inside of microwave popcorn bags, the inside of grease-proof takeout food containers, waterproof jackets, upholstered furniture that's stain resistant, and in certain kinds of firefighting foam. And they are in so many things, so many consumer products that pretty much all of the people in the entire world, 99% of the people, have some levels of PFAS in their blood from the consumer products. We're talking about them, and people may have seen them in the press as forever chemicals. They have an incredibly strong chemical structure of carbon and fluorine bonds that are almost indestructible. So now that they've entered the environment, since they were invented by DuPont and 3M back in the 40s and 50s for Teflon, they're in the environment and they are there to stay. The only way to get rid of them in soil is to incinerate them at a very high temperature, 1,000 degrees Celsius. And I apologize for my dog. After 2 years of working from home, he still thinks there's someone here if I'm talking. So the next slide. We're talking about PFAS specifically in drinking water because that's the primary way that people are exposed to it, notwithstanding all of the paper containers, food containers, firefighting foam, clothing. It is in everything, but the primary exposure route is drinking the water. And for sensitive groups, which are pregnant women, nursing mothers, infants, and immune compromised people, drinking the water or cooking food with it, even for a short period of time, can cause adverse effects. And what we look at in setting drinking water standards based on risk is the sensitivity of the population, the concentration of the contamination, and how frequently you're exposed to it. So typically we would look at a lifetime cancer risk. Somebody for 70 years drinks 2 liters of water a day. For these sensitive groups, it's a matter of months where exposure can have adverse effects in a residential setting for a sensitive group. So someone who's not in a sensitive group, a non-residential use for washing your vegetables, bathing, gardening, those are all less of an exposure, less frequent. So we have to take all of those things in consideration when we talk about what the possible exposures are to PFAS in the water. If you have PFAS in your drinking water, you can reduce it by not using the water for drinking or cooking foods that absorb water like rice or pasta. Use bottled water. There are treatment devices. You can treat all of the water coming into your house, and there are methods, typically carbon filtration, that will take the PFAS out. There aren't any sink mounted units or under the sink units yet that are approved to get to the very low standard that Massachusetts has set for PFAS, which I'm going to talk about in a minute after I talk about the next slide. These are things that on the next slide, Massachusetts has been doing. When we first started talking about PFAS more than 3 years ago, since that time, we've developed a drinking water standard and a groundwater cleanup standard. We've done a lot of outreach with boards of health, citizen groups. We implemented a firefighting foam take-back program so that if any fire departments in the state, we worked through the fire marshal's office, had any of these legacy foams that contain PFAS, we took them away and paid for the incineration. And we've offered free sampling to both public water systems and private wells, which is what we'll talk about. There are over 1,400 public water systems in the state, and we have offered the first round of sampling for PFAS for free. This is a new rule. Nobody saw it coming. Nobody budgeted for it. Certainly in the municipalities with large water supplies, they were not prepared to take this on. So we did offer that free sampling. But we're going to talk about private wells. The next slide, please. It's important to know where your water comes from to understand if this program would apply to you. So there are public water systems and private wells. It's important because Mass DEP regulates public water systems. We do not regulate private wells. A public water supply well serves 25 or more people each day for 60 or more days per year. So it can be privately owned, like a condominium, but it's a public water system because there's more than 25 people in the condominium association. A private well is any well that serves fewer than 25 people. So it can be a small building and only has 8 or 10 people working in that commercial building. It's public, it's publicly open, but it's a private well. Some cities and towns, or mostly the smaller towns, have small town halls, small library, only 10 people are there. It's a publicly owned building, but it's a private well. So there are 24 public water systems in the town of Bolton. Only 4 of them are places where people live. So if you're not living in one of these 4, either apartment or condominium communities, you are on a private well. The next slide. We have 2 different standards because, as I said, Mass DEP regulates public water supplies, but not private wells. But here's how we get involved in the private well business. We have a maximum contaminant level, a drinking water standard of 20 parts per trillion. That's for a public water system. For contaminated groundwater, not as sort of a regular run-of-the-mill water sampling ordinance, but if there's contamination in groundwater that is or could be used as drinking water, the standard is also 20 parts per trillion. It's the same number because it's the same exposure. It's drinking the water. It's just a question of where it's coming from. We've only had these regulations in place December 19 for the cleanup standard and October of 2020 for the drinking water standard, because we only started looking for these contaminants when EPA asked the states to start looking for them back in 2015. Every 5 years, we get a list of things that we should be looking for in public water systems, and PFAS was in the last round, and that's the first time people started looking for them in drinking water. And Massachusetts is at the cutting edge of actually having one of the first drinking water standards in the country for PFAS. So next slide. What the drinking water standard is 20 parts per trillion for 6 of the PFAS chemicals combined. There are thousands of PFAS chemicals. We regulate 6 of them. They're the longer chains. They have been found to be more toxic. That's how we selected those. The number 20 parts per trillion is designed to protect those sensitive groups. So if you protect the sensitive groups, then by extension, you're protecting everybody. So the level is, the 20 parts per trillion is designed to account for the sensitive populations of pregnant women, nursing mothers, infants, and immune compromised people. So just very briefly on the next slide about the public water systems in Bolton. All of the systems had to start sampling on a schedule based on size back in January of 2021. The most recent group, the last group of small systems, the compliance group from last October, everybody has sampled who had to sample by October in Bolton. And the good news is all of the systems that sampled are in compliance with the 20 parts per trillion. So that's an excellent outcome for the public water systems in town. There are about 10 non-community, non-transient systems that are like restaurants, coffee shops, things where it's 25 or more people, but not the same 25 people every day. The winery is one of them. They have until the end of September this year to sample, but our free money runs out at the end of June. So I would encourage any of these transient non-community systems, including Mr. Pelletier, to take advantage of the state's free money and get that PFAS testing done by the end of June to sign up for that program. And you can contact us for more information, as well as anybody else who's listening who has a water system. So on the next slide, we'll talk about the private wells, which is, I know, what you want to hear about. The program covers all of the private wells that are residential in one of these 85 towns, which includes Bolton. There are no requirements to test for PFAS. This is something that the state is doing, and it was with the support of Representative Hogan, to look for PFAS in private wells, because we're only getting data from public water supply. So what's out there in terms of private wells in our small towns? The testing program is run by our contractor, which is UMass. So there's some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes we don't really know because it gets handed over to UMass, but we can certainly find out information about things if people have questions. We'll talk about the process, but it's not a DEP-led process. The sampling money, that money also runs out at the end of June, and the deadline for signing up is April 15th. I know that sounds soon, but a letter went out to all 85 communities last year, giving the boards of health information about this program. And I know some boards of health, including Neshoba, have been very active about promoting the program. And we already have more than 100 people in Bolton signed up to participate in the program. But I just want everybody to know that if you file the paperwork, you go online to do that by the 15th, you will be in the queue for sampling. So here's how it works on the next slide. We have enough money to do 40 wells per town. So there's already 100 people signed up. It is only for residents, no commercial buildings, and only the property owner can sign up, not a tenant. You will sign up online. You get a kit, like a cooler. It comes with the jars and with instructions, which includes a YouTube video. Nobody comes into your house. And you take the sample, you send it off to the lab with the instructions. The analysis takes about 3 weeks. UMass sends the results to the homeowner, to the Board of Health, and to DEP. And as a matter of public records law, which I'm sure the board understands, once the government receives it, it does become a public record. So for purposes of showing results on our website, we do have a story map about the PFAS private well effort. We anonymize the data for that little story map, but if there were ever a public records request, the documents, the actual lab results are public records for your home. So the 40 wells are first come, first serve. So there are 100 people on the list. They're going to get an email that says, here's the link to submit your notice of interest. We can go to the next slide. You complete that form, and the next 2 slides show you what the form looks like. They'll send an access agreement. Then I'm sorry, if you can go back, I didn't write down my notes for this one. I need to see the steps. Yeah, so you get the access agreement, you get the sampling kit, we get the results, and then if there are things that need to happen after that, either Mass DEP or UMass would be in contact. You can't be in the program unless you sign the access agreement. So the first step is the notice of interest, but the second step is signing the access agreement. It is long and intimidating, and a lot of people choose not to participate once they see the access agreement. So don't feel that you don't want to sign up now because there's already 100 people on it. Our rate of return is very small based on the number of people who sign up and then how many actually sign the access agreement. So this is what the notice of interest looks like on the next slide. It asks for your name, your contact information. It asks if you have any information about your well construction, the depth of your well, when it was made. It's a lot of small print, but when you follow the link, this is what it will look like. And if you look at the next slide, it shows you some of the questions that it asks you to answer, whether you have treatment like a water softener and all of those things. And then it says you agree to all these things and you submit that. And at that point, you would get the access agreement. So if we can go to the next slide, these are some of the important points for people to consider. So most of all, people ask us what happens if you find PFAS, and that's an excellent question. Because the possibility of cross-contamination is very high because PFAS are in everything. Somebody's wearing a rain jacket, somebody's using a waterproof marker. It can be a little tricky, and we would then arrange for a second sample just to confirm that there really is PFAS in the water. If something is greater than 20 parts per trillion, like I was talking about with the groundwater cleanup standards, it is a reportable condition under Chapter 21E, the cleanup statute, to have groundwater that's used for drinking water over 20 parts per trillion. We are not going to make homeowners report under Chapter 21E. We are going to handle the reporting to ourselves, but we are tracking them under the 21E program, even though they are not technically sites. One of the things that we've been working a lot on in neighboring towns in Stowe and Boxborough is trying to find out where private well contamination is coming from. So we do need to collect the information and at some point look for if there is PFAS contamination, where is it coming from? And that will all be done under our Chapter 21E program. If you have water over 20, you are your own water supplier and you are responsible for mitigating exposure to that. This is not something that Mass DEP or UMass will take care of. So you would have to make the choice as a homeowner whether to purchase a treatment system. A whole house treatment system runs anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000, or to use bottled water, or to do nothing. I mean, risk assessment for personal reasons is very not scattered, but it runs the range from people who can tolerate zero risk. The only good number in their drinking water is 0, and people who say, you know, I am not in one of those sensitive groups, I'm perfectly comfortable drinking my water. The only exception is if you have water in your well that's over 90 parts per trillion. So just as the standard was set for the sensitive populations at 20 parts per trillion, at 90 parts per trillion, no one should be drinking the water. So Mass DEP has an obligation at that point to come in and mitigate that exposure, which we call an imminent hazard. So if we get a report through the private well sampling program of a result over 90, we will come in, we will work with the homeowner, provide bottled water, provide a treatment system. But it's just important to know that that's the only time the state will act. If you have contamination, it must be over that imminent hazard level to trigger Mass DEP action. So on the next slide, just a refresher. So sign up online. The link is there. I'm pretty sure the Board of Health has the link as well. And definitely read the FAQs. They touch on all of these things about liability and follow-up and bottled water and treatment systems. There's a huge amount of information in this document, which is the frequently asked questions for the private well sampling program. In the last slide, if you have questions or curiosity about PFAS in general, I would strongly recommend that you don't go down the rabbit hole on the internet and just Google PFAS. There is just so much to read, and I would really rather you get your information from Mass DEP. So if you Google Mass DEP PFAS, it takes you to this landing page that you can see, and when you click on that, there is just so much information that if you do have a question that's not answered through some link on our website, you can reach out to me or to Andrea and we will get you the information. But how the health effects and the toxicity were factored into developing the standard, solutions for public water systems, information for the private well owners. There's a link to the Department of Public Health's website where there's a list of bottled water companies that have tested for PFAS. So really, the Mass DEP PFAS page is the best place for you to start. So we appreciate the time to be able to present the information. We hope people will sign up. If you've already signed up, you should anticipate getting information in the mail about the access agreement. And then if you sign that, you'll be getting a kit and you'll be on your way. And I hope that no one finds PFAS in the water so that you don't have to talk to me about this anymore. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Unmuted. I'm sorry, did I interrupt someone?
I just wanted to let you know that you were muted, but also I would just like to note for everyone that the information on testing is already up on the Board of Health website for anybody who's on webpage, if anybody,
Right.
for anyone who is interested.
Okay,
Right.
well, I wanted to thank you for your presentation. I know that on some parts of Stowe and over at Devon's and properties that abut Devon's, this is a big issue. I guess just for point of clarification, you're looking to test about 40 homes in Bolton. You have 100 people signed up, but you would encourage more people to sign up because frequently after reading the fine print, many homeowners decide not to participate. So even though the deadline is next week, it's still worth someone's effort to sign up. Is that correct?
That's correct. If they're interested in finding out because they've heard about PFAS in the press, or they know people who live in Harvard or Stowe or Boxborough, the program is open. We have to count backwards from how long it takes for the labs and everything. So that's why UMass has set a deadline of the 15th. It's an online thing. You can go and do it right now if you wanted to. So up until the 15th, and it will be the first 40 people who send back those access agreements and agree to all the things that I just talked about.
Okay.
I had a question about wells, our wells for public buildings, the library, the safety center, town hall, our schools. Have they been tested?
Yes, they have.
So I'm trying to find my list. The Florence Sawyer School was tested and is in compliance. Let's see, the Bolton Library and Safety Facility tested and in compliance. What were the other properties? The high school was tested.
Great. And
So
now,
those were all tested and were below 20 parts per trillion.
great. Don, there was just one other thing, just to follow up with Chief Legendre. Is he working with Neshoba Board of Health to identify any materials at the safety center that might have PFASs in them?
I know that Chief Legendre has been reviewing that. I don't know if he's working with the Neshoba Board of Health or not, but I do know that fire departments all over the state are very sensitive to the PFAS issue. So I know that he's been on top of that. But to answer your question, I don't know if he's working with the Neshoba Board of Health or not. I'll have to ask him that.
Okay, great, thank you.
And just for the board's benefit, in towns such as Stowe and Princeton, source of PFAS contamination has been determined to be the fire department. So there can be municipal liability associated with sampling results that we find around fire stations and in other communities in the state around municipal landfills. So we are not picking people and saying, you know, we're going to test here because we think we'll find it. We'll accept anybody who signs up. But as the elected officials in town, I just feel that it's fair to let you know that in some of these communities where people have just tested their wells, we sometimes find things that are not anticipated and can cost a lot of money.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Good
You as
evening.
well.
Next, we are looking at an update from the building inspector, Mike Savageau. And he is requesting approval for changes to building, wiring, plumbing, and gas fee schedules. Mike?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Very good.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, so Don had requested that I do a review on the on our fee structure. It's been several years, many years actually, since we've done that. And Kristen did an excellent job of reviewing the surrounding communities of our stature and communities of our size. And I'm assuming that you do. Do you have the spreadsheet in front of you?
Yes, they do.
It's a
Mike.
big spreadsheet. Yep.
Right. Okay. So I can kind of really clarify it simply. Basically, we were at $7.
Excuse me, Mike. Ginny, can you post this? So people on the screen can have some idea what we're talking about. Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Okay. So there it is. Okay. So if you that's the electrical one first. And as you can see, Jim reviewed that one. And he felt that some of those should have went up to get into parity. And that's what we're trying to do, is to stay in parity with the other communities of our stature and size. And for example, if you would look at like a service change modification, you see that some of them 200, like Harvard is 200 to 300. Stowe is $300. Sterling is $300. And so he is recommending that to be changed to $250. And so the structure that we did, without going through every one, unless you have questions on them all, we've basically taken and increased to at least the minimum of what our surrounding communities are, and in some cases to the average of what some of the communities are.
Right.
And he did a few of the structures, a few of them, like for example, if you look at a generator, when you're hooking up a generator, we were $60 for that. He's asking for $100 for that. If you look at like the alarm system, we were $50. So he's increased $25 to $50 per fee structure for the most part, for most of them. And these are actually very, very in line, very in line. Unless you have any questions with the other individual ones, like, for our proposal for, let's say, a swimming pool. We were $75. Most communities are $200 to $150. So he went to $150. So these are very, very, very reasonable fees to stay in parity in comparison to the communities where these builders are doing similar work.
Yep. No, I'm fine with it.
Yep.
Yeah,
And-
it looks reasonable to me. I don't have any specific questions.
Yep. I'm good.
Okay, so we'll go to the next one. Okay, so this is the building permit fee structure. Now, as you can see, we were $10 per thousand. So you take the value of the house, divide it by 1,000 and add 10 and multiply it out at $10 a thousand. As you can see, if we go right straight across, and this is a great example, if you go right straight across the board, we're proposing $12 a thousand for new dwellings. If you look at Berlin, they're 10. We were 10. Stowe, they were 10. We were 10. But when you get out to like Sterling, again, still 10, and they may have not have raised their fees in years also. Boxborough is 12, Sudbury is 10, and Wayland is 15. So we're recommending to at least go to $12 per thousand in that category there. When we go down to garages, additions, alterations, decks, all of those, that category up to the barn category, we were $7 a thousand. And again, we haven't changed in years. Values have gone up tremendously. Inflation has gone up tremendously. So we're proposing on those items, garages, additions, alteration, porches, decks, and barns, we're proposing to go to parity with other communities, $10 per thousand from the 7th. And we can see straight across the board that every other community is at least, other than Boylston, $10 per thousand, and up to, in some cases, on those categories, up to $12 a thousand in some cases. But most communities between the are around 10 or 12. So we're saying we'd like to increase that to 10, which is extremely reasonable. Now, when you get to the foundations, we have a set fee for these items. Those items, set fees are $100 for a foundation. A shed is $50. Pools are $150. We set it by fee structure. Some other communities do set a fee structure, but we find Stowe and Sterling, they're setting it at the $10 per thousand. And it's reasonable to bring it to $10 per thousand because what we're finding is people are no longer putting in swimming pools, for example, for $15,000, right? They're putting pools in for $30,000 and $40,000. So where we would get a fee structure for a standard pool, we would get on the pools, that would be $150 flat fee. When you go to $10 a thousand, it's putting it better into parity again with the other communities. And as we see, Berlin is 100, on the swimming pools is 100. But when you go to all the other communities that we polled, similar to ours, they're at $10 1,000. So it basically takes a swimming pool permit that if it was 30,000 and we were a flat fee of 150, you go to $10 1,000, you'd be doubling that fee, $300 for a permit fee for what it cost us to run the town hall and do the other activities associated with it is extremely reasonable. And we have not gone up in years. And so basically on those, we're asking to go up to $10 1,000. Your solar systems, and we have solar systems at a flat fee of $50. Some people are putting in systems that are running a value of $30,000-$40,000 for rooftop applications. So it just helps us to actually, when you review again all of these items, you'll see that we are very much in line with these increases with pretty much every surrounding community, and some are even higher. So unless there are any specific questions, we can go to the opposite side of the page, which is your commercial. If Jenny could bring that up. Oh, no, that's electrical.
Did I pass it?
That's plumbing. Yeah, I think it was on the back side. Oh, that's it right there. Hold it. Is that it? No, that's new dwellings. It was on the back side of that. I think you're getting it. Yeah, there you are.
Oh,
So when
I
we
see.
go, thank you, Jenny. So when we go to like siding, we're charging a fee of $125. People that were asking for $10 1,000, which is right across the board, even with everybody else. Again, the difference in the fee structure would be some people are siding their houses for $20,000, and that fee would be $200 instead of $125. So again, extremely fair. And we got the smaller numbers such as fences, $50. Depending on the style fence and stuff, that's a low figure. The one comparison we had on fences in some communities, they don't even rate them or have them in the category, obviously, because Kristen did a great job on this. And I'm sure she made calls to every community and asked them all the same questions. So if you see a blank in there, it's because the information was lacking from the community. And then we like tents go from $30 to $50. These are residential things that people commonly do. So you try to be fair with the homeowners, the citizens of the community. But still, again, in comparison to the other communities, we're only going up to where they're at. Now, when we get down to the commercial, we were $10 per 1,000 on commercial. I'm recommending $13.50 per 1,000 on that. We can see other communities across the board are $13.25, $12, $14, and $15. If you pretty much take the average, I figured it out right around $13.50 is a more than fair and comparative price equal to those or slightly less than what the other communities of our size and stature are charging. Again, extremely reasonable. When we get down to the wood stoves, we're just going to keep that at $50 for a wood stove. Sprinkler systems, $10 1,000, because you can have some substantial sprinkler systems. And then the solar for residential, that at $10 1,000 instead of $50. And we all know what solar is costing now to install. And as you see, the other two communities compared similar to ours are also at $10 1,000. So it's very reasonable to at least bring us up to the surrounding communities.
What's the difference between solar residential and solar systems? On the prior
Solar
page.
The other page.
Yeah, you had solar systems on the other page, so it's not clear to
I'm
me.
wondering if that, okay. Yeah, $50. That's because you may have seen that even in the solar system itself, in the residential aspect of it, $50 fee, in the commercial aspect of it, $50 fee.
All right, okay, so
So
it's
what
the
we
same
gotta do is
thing,
we
it's
gotta-
just, well, this says residential, so that's why I was confused.
Right, no, understandably. No, basically, we're saying, look, we're gonna do it just like you do a dwelling. And it's
Okay.
basically based on the dollar amount of the construction cost per thousand. As you can see, everything that's been represented here is extremely reasonable and nothing more than comparative to our surrounding communities.
We seem to have more permit fees than other towns.
Maybe not. Some other towns may not be charging for certain things. Things are done differently in other towns. I think the general type of permitting that we have is very standard. And because something might be lacking in that line category, it might be that Kristen could not get the information from the town. But in an overall sense, these are things, excuse me, that require building permits. So they do require fees associated with them.
Okay.
So I think they're fair. I think it's time. And if there's no objection from the board, if they could vote to accept these fees, that would be great. And if they so decide not to, that's their prerogative. And
When would this go into effect? As soon as we
whenever you
vote?
guys decide, I guess you're the authority on that.
Well, how does in-process stuff get affected by this?
It wouldn't, similar to the building code, anything any application that has to be submitted based on the fee structure at the time of the submission. Just as the building permit that you receive is valid for the code that you receive it in. I mean, you could say that this could be effective the following month. You could say it could be effective in the middle of the year in June. You could say December, you could say January. It's really the prerogative of, you could actually just state that any application from the vote forward that's already in is with the old fee, obviously, because the application's already in. And anything further that comes in could now be off the new fee structure. But it's really up to the board to determine when they'd like to institute this, if they accept it.
I just had a question about inflation and whether, instead of playing catch up every 5 years, could we peg these fees to inflation?
You could.
The mechanics
then
of that
then
would be
somebody
very
would have to-
difficult.
Yeah, somebody would have to actually be tracking that on a regular basis. And then that could change, but realistically, maybe daily, today. I don't know.
See, and then applicants and people in town would never have any idea of how much to expect.
No,
Exactly.
every year you would reset it based on annual inflation.
You could do that. I mean, then that's maybe not a bad idea, only in the sense that it's taken care of on a yearly basis instead of every 5 or 6 or 7 years.
Mr. Chairman, may I interject?
Please.
I just want to comment that these kinds of fee changes also have some administrative work that needs to happen in the viewpoint system. So I think doing it every year would become a lot of work.
Cumbersome.
And I also think that making these fees effective from the vote forward would be very difficult for Kristen to achieve. I think she needs a little bit of time to get those formulas in each of the different permit types adjusted.
Okay, good point.
I agree with Jenny, Mr. Chairman. I suggest you consider either May 1st or July 1st for the new fiscal year. or
Yeah,
May
I was
1st for
thinking
next
July
year.
1st.
Why?
I think.
Wait, I mean, Bob, are you trying to game the system? Is there some development that you don't want this to apply to?
I know of no development that's going to happen between now and July 1st. I know of no building projects that are going to happen between now and July 1st. So no, I'm not trying to game it for any the advantage of any particular group or project or developers or anything like that. I'm unaware of anything that's imminent or even likely.
We could certainly do it for May 1st. I agree with Jenny. My concern is Kristen will need some administrative time, so I wouldn't recommend that you do it effective the night of the vote or effective Monday. We need a little window there, but if the board was more comfortable with May 1st, I think we could certainly be ready for that.
Yeah, I'd support May 1st. There's a lot of construction activity that happens in the spring and the summer. And, you know, we do need this money. So I'm in favor of May 1st.
I don't know, I'm still kind of inclined to just do it at the start of the new fiscal year, July 1st. That's my only reason for pushing it out is in the new fiscal year. You know, is there a third opinion on this? I guess not at the moment.
I can say, if it helps, that there is no, from a permitting fee perspective, there is no nexus between implementing that and the start of the new fiscal year. You know, unlike other municipal accounting situations, this can be done anytime, and there is no linkage to fiscal year.
No, it just seemed like a good time to do it. All right, well, Jonathan, do you have any issues with any of the proposed numbers?
Nope, I support all this work. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate the effort that's gone into this and your presentation, and I support your recommendations.
Well, I don't think I can call for a vote until.
Does somebody want to text Stan?
Did you want to move on to plumbing and gas? I don't think Mike has spoken to those yet.
Can you? Yeah, let's go to the plumbing and gas fee schedules, and if you could get hold of Stan and see if he's going to be rejoining us somehow. Looks like he lost his connection.
Okay, would you like me to speak on behalf of plumbing and gas?
Sure.
Okay, so basically, we don't see any new proposed changes in there. I had talked to Bob, and he felt that he is, as you can see, in most cases, we are.
But Bob is, okay, it's not me when you say
Bob Janda,
Okay.
plumbing inspector. I'm so sorry, Bob. Sorry, Bob.
Okay, I just want everyone to know that you're not.
No,
it's not me you were
not.
talking to.
No, it was not, no. After speaking with the plumbing, I had a conversation with the plumbing inspector and asked him if he felt that any of his fees needed to be adjusted relative to where they were in comparison to other communities. And you'll see for the most part that he's pretty much in line with that. They do it based on the number of fixtures. The first fixture is so much, and depending on what type of work you're doing. So he didn't really have any recommendations as to what he was going to change in the fee structure, because he did say he felt it was very fair and very competitive and very in line with the other communities. That's why we don't have a new proposed date, proposed numbers on those.
Okay. And was there one more page?
We already went through the electrical, and then we did all of the building already.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Okay.
I just texted Stan to see if he can make his way back.
All right. Did he respond to your text?
Not yet, no.
All right. Hey, Jonathan, how about if I split the difference with you and we make it June 1st? We need 2 votes to pass this.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we update the building inspector, fees for buildings, wiring, plumbing, and gas lines. And it would start June 1st. These rates would start June 1st.
I'll second that. Roll call, Jonathan?
Aye.
I am also a yes, and we, as far as we can tell, Stan is not able to connect to the meeting right now. Is there any problem with that procedure, Don?
No, that'll work fine.
Okay, okay. All right. Thank you, Mike. Thank you,
I
Kristen.
appreciate it. And I want to
Thank
thank
you, Mike.
Jenny for her help. Bye, everyone, and thank Jenny for her help, and especially Kristen, who took a lot of time to put this together. I really appreciate the help on this.
No,
Thank
good
you.
work.
Kristen.
It's a lot of
Good night.
detail.
It was a lot of good work, and that's consistent in the town hall, believe me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Kristen.
Thanks, Mike and Kristen.
Thank you. We'll see you now.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Next up is a request from the Public Ways Safety Committee to place 10 horse crossing signs at 5 locations in town. I assume that means one sign on either side of the road. But Mary Cuomo?
Yes.
Why don't you walk us through this?
Okay, so we have received a request from Ms. Cindy Ayotte, who is here, for 10 signs installed at 5 different locations. They would not be on either side of the street. One would be the Main Street one, but the others would be at the location of the horse rider exiting either their residence or a stable, and entering. The other one would be located at the conservation trail where they would be entering. And these conservation trails are located on Bond Hill Road, on Green Road, and Berlin Road, and Sugar Road. So we're
Okay.
asking for,
Well, okay, so I guess I misunderstood this, and just let me ask to make sure I understand it now. The addresses you've given are the entrances to conservation trails.
No,
They're not
no.
specifically, they're not the addresses of
the
homeowners
addresses,
that have horses.
yes, the addresses are the homeowners' addresses where they would be exiting with their horse. And they would be going on the road to a conservation trail. So you would have a sign in the other direction of the conservation trail warning vehicles that there is a horse either approaching them or behind them.
Okay. Okay, so go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
So 6 of those signs would be the equestrian on a horse sign, warning signs that they're on the road. And then we are requesting crossing signs for the Sugar Road location and also the location on Main Street.
Okay. So how did these particular addresses get picked?
So I will let Cindy answer that for you.
Sure. My name is Cindy Ayotte. I live on Main Street, and I'm not representing not only myself, but some other horse owners in town whose addresses are the ones noted. There's a small group of us who are concerned about horse safety in Bolton, and we've gotten together and discussed some approaches. There are 2 issues. Issue number 1 is with the trails. Over the past several years, there's been a lot of beaver activity, making a lot of the trail entrances impassable. We're addressing that separately through the Trails Committee and a Mass Trails grant. But road safety over the past several years, with Waze coming in, bringing a lot of cars, has caused a safety issue for horses on the roads. We have a lot of more cars coming, and many people aren't familiar with what to do if you see a horse. There is a law in Massachusetts that requires cars to stop if you're going the opposite way and slow way down if you're going the same way as a horse until signaled to pass. So the goal of this project is to try to preserve Bolton's rural character by making it so that horses can still be in town and ride on the trails. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess it leads me to another question, which is, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it. This can't be the complete list of all the horse owners in town. So I guess if I were to agree, let me put it this way. If I were to agree to this right now, I guess I'm worried I could be accused of just giving a certain group of people preferential treatment. And I'm trying to understand why that's not the case.
Well, my original list of requested signs, there was actually closer to 45 signs. And it was basically at the beginning and the end of all of the roads that horses would travel on in Bolton. However, the addresses that have been listed are the people that answered my advertisement. So I had a post in Bolton for people who are interested about horse safety, people who joined. And I reached out to as many people as I could separately. The people who joined and expressed a concern and an interest in trail riding were the people that I included. There are other people who really weren't interested or didn't express a concern in the safety of riding on the roads.
Okay, fair enough.
So we could add signs later.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering if suppose we just put these signs a certain distance away from the trailheads in both directions and not tie it to any particular address, if that will help address the problem.
I would say, well, for example, let's take Vaughn Hill Road, which is a very narrow road with, in a lot of spots, no shoulder for a person on horseback, pedestrian. And I will say I'm amazed at the number of people that I see walking that road with their dogs, pushing baby carriages in. It's a very dangerous road. So you really would want to put the sign where there will be a horse on the road. So, you know, as we say, in the vicinity of these particular addresses, because we know that's where the horses are going to be coming out of.
Yeah, and on Vaughn Hill Road also, there's a woman with a Mini who likes to drive the Mini with a cart on the road. And she might not necessarily be going into the trail. She might just be going up and down the road near her house.
When you say a Mini.
It's a mini horse, a little mini horse that pulls the
Okay.
cart. She rides in the cart.
Okay.
Well, I think you know, this is an important recreational activity. We do have wonderful trails. It's wonderful to see horses and people on horseback using our trail system. So I support this.
We could also use it as a pilot and see if it really helps. And if I find the folks of us that have the signs near our homes find that it's really helping cars to slow down, then and others reach out, we might consider more signs at a later date.
Well, okay, but then why wouldn't we put out bicycle signs for everyone who's got a bicycle?
Well, actually, share the road sign should be up in places in our town.
I mean, this is
Not so much bicycle, but share the roads. But I think horseback riders they're so much larger than, say, a pedestrian or a cyclist on the road. And if you've got a curvy, narrow road, it's a vehicle coming around a corner. It's a lot harder to swerve out of the way of a horse or a horse trying to get out of the way of a vehicle than say a pedestrian or a cyclist on the road. Not saying that it's any more dangerous for any of these users, but just taking into consideration the size of a horse.
My horse would be about the size of 3 or 4 deer. So if you picture somebody hitting a deer, the damage that can do to your car or the person in the car is significantly more than that. So it's not only me and my horse, it's also the driver going by.
No, I'm not debating whether or not there's danger here. I'm debating about how to treat this group of people who feel endangered comparably to everyone else who might come forward and do this. I mean, the argument's going to be, if you're doing this for the people who own horses, why won't you do this for me? Why won't you do this for me and my baby carriage? Why won't you do this for me and my bicycle?
So we do, the Public Way Safety Committee does receive requests for other types of warning signs. And with consultation with DPW and the police chief, we look at the locations, we look at the requests, and we decide whether or not a sign is justified. We feel that in this case, it is justified. So to give you an example, children warning signs, children at play warning signs, or our hidden driveway signs, that sort of thing. So we do take a lot of factors into account. We look at all of these roads, with the exception of Main Street, are scenic roads. And one thing that we really don't want to see is sign pollution on the roads. So we take that into consideration. But these are real safety. I believe I shouldn't say the committee believes that these warning signs are justified safety signs that, and no, I wouldn't want, I wouldn't want to see signs all over our roadways, Bob. It's sign pollution.
No, I'm just trying to figure out how to be fair to this is how to be fair to the next group of people who comes forward.
But Mary, Public Ways and Safety has voted on this.
Yes.
And what was the vote?
Well, it was unanimous. We worked with Cindy for a year on this, and I give her a lot of credit for meeting with the Conservation Trust, I believe, and going to apply for grants to fix these bridges at these trails, which is one of the reasons why the horses are on the roads more than they are on the trails, is because when they access a trail, if there's a bridge that they can't cross over, then they have to go back out onto the roadway to access the trail at another location. So she's working on getting grants to do repair to these bridges so that the horses can safely cross over them.
Yeah, I reached the police chief about this. When I first started having this problem, the first thing I did was to meet with the police chief, and he suggested speaking with the DPW and the Public Way Safety Committee about signs, because he thought that would be helpful.
Okay.
Another consideration is I'm willing to pay for the signs for the town.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I understand that. That's not really entering into my concerns here. I guess to leave the question of what other groups might do behind for a moment. It seems to me that on the specific case of the Main Street, Forbush Mill, Green Road intersection, that's likely to be torn up in the next 18 months. So I'm wondering if it's really worth our while to install signs there.
So that is going to be problematic because of the work for the roundabout. And so those signs will be delayed. That crossing is actually for Cindy, who normally crosses the road at her house to access the Goose Pond Conservation Trail across the street. Right before her house is a curve in the road that we felt that it was extremely dangerous for her to make that crossing at that location. And Cindy said she could cross her neighbor's yard onto Green and cross by the high school. And we thought that was much safer crossing point because the sight lines are much better there. But at the same time, yes, there's going to be, the roundabout will be put in there, but with that will be a pedestrian crossing light. There'll be a pedestrian island there with a crosswalk. So it'll be much safer. Where exactly to put, the horse crossing signs, that'll have to be worked out at that point.
So you would not put up the horse crossing signs before
Yeah,
that work
no,
is done?
no, absolutely not.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess the other point that's troubling me greatly now is, Ms. Ayat, we haven't met and anything else like that, but that public safety is devoting town resources to the issues of one particular person is startling to me. And
It's a group, Bob. This
Pardon
is a
me?
Group.
Pardon me?
This is a group. This is a group. It includes the horse veterinarians who live on Berlin Road. It's a group of people.
Well, you weren't
share a
listening
love
to
of
what
horses.
Mary Cuomo just said.
It's her last name is Chumo.
Cuomo.
So
Sorry,
we
my
get
apologies.
requests by private citizens all the time. The Chief Nelson gets requests from people who, are concerned about speeding on their road, and he will set out the speed recorders, and these are all requests from one citizen asking for speed reductions or that sort of thing. We receive signage by individuals for hidden driveways just for their driveway. We receive signs for people, for the children at play, because they have children and they're concerned about the speeding on their roadways. So most sign requests come from individuals. They don't come from groups of people.
Yeah, and there would be other people that would use that crossing because we have new conservation land coming down there on Forbush. And I do have neighbors with horses. It's just, I'm the only one who's daring to go across there right now. It's not to say that others wouldn't use that crossing.
Okay.
We have to think about towns. What is Bolton's future? Look at towns like Carlisle, Weston, Hamilton. Those are towns with a lot of preserved land, high property values, lots of trails, and the common denominator is there's a lot of horses in those towns. So, we need to think about what our future is going to be. Do we want to continue to have horses be able to be in Bolton or not?
No, and please understand, I'm not questioning the signs. It's more the location is the focus of my questions.
And I will mention that at present, there are sign locations in two places. There's signs on Goldenrod Road at the top and bottom for equestrian, warning sign. And by, I believe it's 306 Green Road, there is a two horse crossing signs, because you have the horses on one side of the street and then you have the farm across the street that they cross over to. And I don't know the history of when those signs went up and how they went up, but we do already have horse crossing signs in Bolton.
Yeah, again, my issue is not what the sign is, it was the location. So I will go ahead and I will be in favor of installing the signs as recommended, except for the 4 Bush Mill Green Road, that those signs not be installed until after that intersection is renovated.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Jenny, was that clear enough of a motion?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, roll call. Jonathan?
Aye.
And I am a yes also.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
All
Thank you
right,
for
have a
your
good
hard
day.
work.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any word
Next up,
from Stan?
sorry, Don?
Any word from Stan?
No, I reached out again and I haven't heard from him. I don't know what's happening.
Okay.
All right, town administrator report?
Just a reminder or mention for everyone, tomorrow is my monthly coffee with the town administrator. So anyone who would like to come and chat with me about whatever they would like to chat about is welcome to do so, 8:30 to 9:30 at the Bolton Bean. I'll be the person sitting all by himself in the window to the right of the door. And hopefully won't be there all alone. I do have very regular devoted people who come pretty much every month. The other thing that is listed here is the update on 580 Main Street and discussion of priorities. What you have in your packet is a list of 14, I believe, items. They are not in prioritized order. They weren't intended to be. And I don't expect the board to take any action tonight. This is the first time in this packet that you've seen this list, so it would certainly be unfair of you, or not of you, to expect to take any action tonight. I've got staff available tonight. If anything on here is not clear to you, if you need any detail on any of this, that's the purpose of tonight, to get this list in front of you. We have received these from either individuals or from boards and committees. I know Valerie is here. I know Rebecca is here. If they're self-evident to you, then that's fine. But I wanted to have the appropriate resources here in case you had any questions on anything that's there. So at a future meeting, you can start to talk about what your priorities are, because I think it's important that the ZBA know what the board's priorities are. And certainly when I get calls from Wood Partners, if I can start to set expectations. I've had many calls with Wood Partners and Jim Lambert in particular, just to discuss pretty much most, if not all of these at one point or another, to try to just do some clarifying, to get a sense for what they may be open to. But again, at the end of the day, it's a ZBA that'll need to be aware of what the board's priorities are. So I'm trying to help facilitate the process here by doing this.
Jenny, can you put up the first page of the list on the screen? Oh, you can put the whole thing on the screen. Great. It is an extensive list. You know, something like improvements to Derby Field, I'm not sure what the scope of that is. And I probably got the same question for many of these things. I think I'm going to have to come in and understand, you know, what these things, how to better interpret these.
Well, Jonathan may well have the same question about Derby Field. That's a good example. Derby Field is, I guess you might say, a serviceable field, but it could be so much more. We could put irrigation in, we could put proper drainage in, maybe reseed some or all of it. I would see it as, it's certainly a benefit to the town, but also I would see it as another amenity to be made available to the tenants at 580 Main Street. They have visitors, whether it's, whether they have their own children or visitors' children or grandparents have grandchildren coming to visit them. It would be a nice short walk over to there where they can bring the kids to play. And of course, the benefits to the town are obvious. Years ago, there were some, not too many years ago, there were some conceptual plans put together for how something could be laid out there. So that obviously the school benefits from it and as well. So again, at the 50,000 foot level, that's what we're looking at. It's not designed, but that's the concept. And these are concepts, obviously.
So just to confirm, Derby Field is the field where the community garden is and where there's the lacrosse nets and a practice area.
No. Derby Field would be the field in behind Florence Sawyer.
Okay, so it's the soccer field play area behind Florence Sawyer. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
That's where the school kids run around.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, my big picture, I think we need to see some planning of these things, in a plan form. So if there's a proposal to relocate, the community garden, I'd like to know where that's being proposed, additional parking. Many of these things kind of need like a schematic for us to kind of consider the options like parking.
Well, I think they're trying to ask us what items they need to flesh out more. They can't flesh out all of these because some of these are mutually exclusive.
Yeah, I want to know where people can't go anymore, and what are, if we keep the community garden, can we keep the community garden where it is, or if we can't, if we can, where's the parking and access going to be? So those are, big important questions, and I just don't know how to assess that.
And that's the concern of Parks and Recreation, is that we don't know either. We are running scared of losing, we think, the lower field due to these wellheads. Lacking information, we too are kind of running around going, oh my God, we're going to lose the community gardens. We can't drive in there anymore. There's going to be the wellhead that we never observed properly on the office building. And now there'll be a new wellhead for the community. So we share with you, I think, the lack of information and certainty on some of these exclusion zones and what our options are. With the solar field potentially going in, does that block off some access going up to the old field on top? What will happen to that gravel road? Can cars get down to the lower field anymore, or is that off? So indeed, some type of information session for the benefit of all of our groups would be very helpful.
But Ed, I mean, we've already discussed the fact that there's going to be an issue with access. I mean, they can't put enough parking at 580 Main to accommodate having, the where the solar field is going to go, have it be soccer fields. We know that that's not possible.
I understand.
I mean, so some of the things that you're asking, we already know the answers to. And this list is not an inclusive list. We have to pick some things that we would like, wood partners to do. So we're not going to have everything done, and I think we should be thinking about, you're not going to have another soccer field on the leach field. We need to consider that's no longer possible.
Understand.
If we want to move the community garden, it's up to us to figure out where would we want to put it. And then we would get wood partners to
And
help
who
with
in
that.
town, and who in town government's gonna have responsibility for it? Because we will have responsibility for it if we move it.
Exactly. And you know, there are only a few places that we can move the thing. You
Agreed.
know, do we move it to the Taggart property? Do we move it possibly where, you know, just kind of up the street a little bit, where the cell tower is? I mean, we talked about originally the town placing a new police station by that cell tower, which is down that road next to the soccer fields and you know, Clinton Savings Bank. You know, is that a viable place? So I think, you know, we need to do a little bit of work too, if that's one of the things that we want to consider. But I think in general, they're not going to be able to provide enough parking at 580 Main for all of the uses that we need. And probably the most important probably is providing some additional parking for the senior center to allow you know, the folks who are using the senior center at the HUD senior housing facility there on Main Street. But I don't think we should be looking at even thinking about soccer fields and those kinds of things. And then maybe moving the community garden might be a good thing as well.
Andy Kisich? Andy, I think you're muted.
No, he's okay.
Am I okay now?
Yeah.
There you are.
I was just going to bring up the same issue about the wellhead area in the southwest portion of that property. I'm all for doing stuff with open space and recreation on that list, but I'm very concerned about that area. If we move forward with this project, we really need to make it very clear that there can be no cars parking over there or running across that area. We can't approve a project and then run, you know, allow that sort of thing to happen.
Right.
It shouldn't have been happening in the past, and now we're very aware of it. So, you know, whatever we do, we have to keep that in mind, that space where the well in that corner is off limits, at least for vehicles.
I think Parks and Recreation would just like to know, and it sounds like this is the way it's firming up, that we are losing, in effect, the use of that lower field, which was called the horse ring field. That's all we're asking. Is if that's true, then we understand we have to move on to other locations. And I think that's the mystery.
Ed, it's not a mystery. It's not true. And it's not a mystery. Lisa has been very involved. So if you were talking to Lisa, Lisa knows that that's not true. The field is not going anywhere. The issue is where people will park and how they can access it. Whether we have limited parking in that area, whether we have ADA parking in that area, can we still access it in some form or fashion from 580 Main Street, or will they need to come in from behind Florence Sawyer? We've had internal meetings of staff that Lisa and Rebecca and Valerie have all been involved in. So it's not that Parks and Rec doesn't know what's going on.
But are there diagrams? Are there any diagrams that we can look at?
Yes, there are, Jonathan. We have overlays of on maps that again, that the staff, including Lisa, have been involved with. We have, for example, and I'm going to try to hit some of the salient points. As far as the community garden goes, for example, if the community garden remains where it is, and no one's saying it has to move at this point, we're going to be asking for some dedicated parking at 580 Main Street so that people that are using the community garden can at least park there. They would have to walk over, but at least they would have to have a place to park, because much of that area people can no longer park in because of the wellhead area. But we do have maps that show where that area is. We have overlays of that. We are in the process of wanting to determine whether or not we can access again, vehicular access from in behind Bolton Country Manor. We haven't determined that yet because there are some species that need to be evaluated, so we know if that's an upland area or not an upland area. The Council on Aging feels very strongly about additional parking for the senior center. Otherwise, they won't be able to continue to conduct events because when they get 12 or 15 more people for their events, they've got to have a place to park. They have that now, but at some point they won't. So we're working on how that can be laid out. But we have maps that show exactly where the wellhead areas are, where the buffer zones are, and to a large extent what we can and can't do. We can certainly put in something that's got pedestrian and bicycle access. We hope, we don't have a final determination, put something in that will allow for emergency vehicle access. But what we haven't resolved yet is vehicular access from that location. And when you look at in behind Florence Sawyer, we've got what, as I always say, I guess the dictionary would call it a bridge because it's a structure that spans water. I would not be wild about driving my car over it, but other people are more adventurous than I am. But, so do we need to improve that and have a better structure there for people to cross over? Also service vehicles for the water treatment facility may need to go in there now. They don't now. They currently go in from 580. So we have a lot of maps. They can certainly be shown at the next meeting. What I'm trying to get a handle on tonight is, again, concerns like you're expressing, Jonathan, and try to get a sense at the next meeting, not tonight, but at the next meeting, what the list of priorities are to some extent, because we're not going to be, it's not realistic to expect to achieve all 14 things that we have listed here. I mean, this is going to need to be winnowed down to a certain extent. And yes, the board needs to understand better what you're facing as far as restrictions in some areas.
May I follow up?
In a moment, yes.
Yeah.
But for now, I just wanted to get the bare list in front of you, get you started thinking. Any questions that you have that you want answered, we can prepare to do that for the next meeting. I think we have most of the data that you're seeking. I just want to be able to understand what it is that that you're most interested in, so that we can work on supplying it for the meeting of the 28th.
Hey, Andy, let me let Gerard go. By the way, I want to say I'm pleased to see the members of the ZBA attending tonight's meeting. Thank you for coming. But Gerard, you go ahead, and then I'll go back to Andy.
Yeah, well, thanks for at least discussing the topic. Given it's a LIP, it's sort of town sponsored in some respect, but my concern is we have a good list here that people put together, and I guess you'll probably discuss it more fully at another meeting, but we have a statutory requirement to, within 180 days, close the hearing and then draft a decision. So now we may not be, we're not at that limit yet. We're getting close. So all I would encourage is, if there's something on this list that the towns are like, we really need some assistance from this applicant to, maybe as they're going to build out a project that's going to be significant to the town. If there's something that you really say, we really need to do something on this list, certainly find that priority, at least let's get it under discussion, because we will have to incorporate that into some decision at some point and have those discussions with the applicant, because then we lose that time, potentially that window after the decision's made. If there's things that the town needs, that applicant may not have any motivation to then incur any additional costs. You know what I mean? So.
Okay. Yeah.
We don't have a lot of time.
Okay, Andy.
So I was going to follow up on that, maybe asking Don and maybe Valerie, is getting those maps that you talk about something that we could utilize at the zoning board meetings with the 580 Main Street people? Because when they present to us, they're only basically presenting maps that relate to their property. So we don't get to see what's necessarily back there when we're making our deliberations. So it would be helpful, I think, to get some additional maps and ideas at our meeting with our applicant.
We could certainly do that, Gerard, with a caveat, because when we have our internal meetings, we're going with wetland delineations that have not been finalized yet. We realize that we're close. So they're more than just approximate, but they're less than final. So as long as no one tries to nail it down to, within 6 inches of accuracy, I think it would be fine. And it would certainly give you an order of magnitude to understand what you're dealing with.
Don, how many residents are expected to live in this development?
128 units times, say, times 3 maybe, overall. I mean, they're 2 and 3 bedroom units. So
I thought it was over 200 units.
Yeah, 228 units, I believe.
Okay.
But they're 2 and 3 bedroom units, I believe. So, so
yeah, so I
500 plus people.
I just want to reiterate that, and I just found out today that they will allow dogs. So we're going to have lots of people living there, lots of children, pets, and in a very small area. So, how we treat the land between this development and Florence Sawyer School is really important. There's a lot of people who need open space, and we need to make sure that we're providing space for them to do things outdoors like we all do, walking dogs, kids playing, picnicking. It can't all happen like at Memorial Field. So I think we need to be thinking about that.
Okay, Rebecca Longval is the town's conservation agent. Rebecca?
Thank you. I just had one point of clarification on the wetland delineation. I was happy Don highlighted that point. But just for the record, the ANRAD has been submitted for 580 Main Street. So that is what is currently being reviewed by the Conservation Commission during the public hearing process. They just opened that public hearing, so I don't know what the review will be. And the areas that Don was referring to as well, we have wetland delineations for, but they're from over 3 years ago. So again, they're not 100% accurate. Wetlands are dynamic and can change over the years, but those maps include a good baseline. And then we have existing condition maps or plans that were permitted in the past for the lacrosse field and the various other town-owned properties.
Okay, so it's our intention tonight to have put this before the select board to answer any preliminary questions that you might have tonight. We will come back to this at our next meeting, which it will be in 2 weeks. 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
3 weeks, Mr. Chairman.
3 weeks.
28th.
Thank you. And from there, the hope is we'll be able to set some priority. The select board will agree on some priorities for this. I personally feel that this is not the list that we should have the option to pick and choose aspects of different things and put one unified proposal together if that's possible. It's not just you have to have 2A and not 3C unless if you can connect them somehow, that'd be fine. So I think the select board should keep itself open to that kind of development. Are there any other questions people have?
I just have one more request. Under 10, you talk about the town center trail loop, and I'd just like to see like what is that loop system? Just on a rough diagram of what that is. I'm not aware of that.
Valerie, can you describe that?
Sure, yes, that is what is rank 3 on the town's complete streets prioritization plan. So this is an off-road, mostly off-road trail that connects the schools along Mechanic Street to Memorial Field, and then would wrap around along 117. So this is noting that there's the potential for the existing cart path that goes between 580 Main west to that septic field, utilizing that path as an extension of that town center trail loop, assuming that that will be a trail in the future. So trying to connect those residents and existing residents to an off-road walking path.
Thank you. That's helpful. Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Rebecca, the buffers between the existing parking lot and the open water wetlands, how is that going to be handled?
Can you please clarify what you mean, what you're referring to as the existing parking areas?
So there's the large parking area behind the office building.
Yeah.
And then there's a buffer that was recently like clear cut. And then there's open water wetlands with beaver dams. And I'm just wondering about that buffer. Is that going to be, how is that going to be managed? Is that going to be like, they need to leave that alone?
So I will answer that to the best of my ability. So the property owner, not Wood Partners, Condyne, had filed a notice of intent for the maintenance of infrastructure there, so stormwater infrastructure and their facilities and then established through that. That had been issued back in 2021. They were allowed to breach a beaver dam and do some activity and maintenance under that order of conditions. Some of that will be permitted in perpetuity once they come for their certificate of compliance for that work. That's the way the commission had approved it. However, on that same note, as I stated before, the Conservation Commission is now reviewing the ANRAD for 580 Main Street as a whole. So there wasn't a confirmed delineation of jurisdiction over any of the areas yet, or the extent of jurisdiction. So once that ANRAD is issued an ORAD, which is basically saying these are the resource areas confirmed, where they are on site, associated adjacent upland resource areas, which also correlates with the buffer that you're referring to, at that time, I would then be able to directly answer that question. Today, what we have to go by is the existing order of conditions that was recently issued for maintenance purposes only. And then when that new delineation gets approved, then we'll have the answer to that question for any new work or alterations within that area. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so right now the parking lot is pouring right into the wetlands over gravel areas. And I'm just wondering, is that condition going to change with the new development?
It will have to be stabilized. So they were required to stabilize that with riprap. They had some wattles there in the past, along with some vegetative mix that they had planted as well. They're aware of the damage to the parking area that causes that issue. But if that parking area is to be kept there, it would depend on what it shows in the notice of intent. If the notice of intent shows that it's a direct drainage point basically, or a direct source into a resource area, then yes, that would need to be addressed. If they're removing that, then they're addressing it already.
Thank you.
Stan, any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I mean, I've kind of went down the list of what some of the things that I'd like to see, but that's for another meeting.
Yeah. Well, I would just like to apologize to Valerie because I introduced Rebecca with her title, but I did not introduce Valerie with her title of town planner. So that's why I referred to Valerie to answer that question, because she does fill the role of town planner for us. Any other questions from the ZBA? Members of the ZBA? No? All right, then thank you very much. We will be talking about this again in a few weeks.
Okay.
Now we go on to select board business. Are there any public service announcements?
Mr. Chairman, I have two, if I may.
Certainly.
One, I would just like to remind everyone, especially now that the weather is improving, they may be more open to using the 2 EV charging stations that we have, one at the DPW office area and one at the public safety building. So people perhaps attending ball games now at Memorial Field might want to take advantage of the charging station at the public safety building while they're down that way watching games. Anyone going to the school or anywhere in that area, the DPW is frequently available. We're getting low usage right now, but I'm hoping that with the warm weather, people are going to be out and about more and maybe more inclined to be using them. Also, as you may have seen under news and announcements today, the transfer station is now able to take glass recycling again. So in that vein, I know Stan is usually the one who talks about this, but now that bottles can be brought back, it's a great opportunity to help the Boy Scouts by bringing the glass down and donating it to them so they can get the benefit of it. But I just wanted to mention both of those items.
Okay. Anything else from the select board?
No, not this evening. I think I will at some point be talking about, I think at some future meeting, we may want to discuss some of the issues around the Neshoba Regional School District budget and where the money is going, but that's for a future meeting. I've asked Don to gather some information and we'll be bringing that to the attention of the public at a future meeting that I'm going to request an agenda item. So.
All right.
I'll just jump in, Bob. As a dad who does recycling with my Boy Scout, so we definitely want glass. We want beer bottles. That's what we can get money from, and bottles for carbonated drinks. Wine bottles we can't get any money for, and then aluminum cans are very valuable. So those, and also plastic soda cans of every size, we get money for those as well.
And having been treasurer of the Scout Troop years ago, I can tell you that it's a substantial portion of their annual budget comes from the bottles and cans that people bring and drop off at the shed at the transfer station. So I too urge everyone to bring their items there. They're recyclable for money items there. Thank you. Go ahead.
I actually have one I could add too. Residents are asked to pick up litter in front of their homes and along roadsides around town for Earth Day. Trash bags from cleanup can be taken to the transfer station between April 16th and 24th when open. And no sticker is required if you let the attendant know that you're helping to clean up Bolton.
Okay,
That's a
good
great.
news.
And I'd like to thank Mary Boyd for helping to organize Earth Day as usual.
Okay. Next, I'd like the select board to consider endorsing a proclamation against a proclamation against anti-Semitism that was signed by the governor and the lieutenant governor and the secretary of the Commonwealth back in February. I believe there was a copy in your packet. I could read it if people feel that that would be helpful for the discussion. Jenny, could you put it up so people at home can see where it is? It's much lengthier than the proclamation we discussed earlier tonight. But I'm wondering if there are any questions or comments about this particular proclamation.
No, I'm fine with it. I fully support it.
I support it as well.
All right, could I have a motion to endorse the governor's proclamation against anti-Semitism?
I'll make a motion that we endorse Governor Baker's proclamation against anti-Semitism.
Second.
Roll call. Jonathan?
Aye.
Stan?
Aye.
And I am a yes also. All right, thank you very much. Finally, we have a request from the Zoning Board of Appeals to appoint Elizabeth Hutchins to the Zoning Board of Appeals to fill an open spot. I believe she's been an associate member of the Zoning Board of Appeals for a while. Is that correct? Don, do you know if Elizabeth
Yes,
Hutchins? Okay.
Yes, he has.
Hi, yes, sorry, I'm here. Yeah, I joined, I want to say summer of 2021. So I've been heavily involved with the Mallard Lane stuff that's been ongoing, as well as the 580 Main.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Before we do that, is this position, did we need to advertise this? And did we?
The position, since there was an associate there, I don't believe, Jenny, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe that we did advertise the position because we had the recommendation from the ZBA to move Ms. Hutchins from associate to a board member, a voting board member.
Yeah, I don't recall off the top of my head if that open seat was listed on what Pam sent out. It very well may have been, but yes, the recommendation came shortly after to appoint Liz.
I do believe that it may have been, because I applied like with a normal pathway. Like I went on to the site and it was very clear on the site that it was available. And I think I actually waited a little while before I applied. So it was clear that it was vacant for a little while.
Yeah. I assumed that it was advertised. I didn't know that for sure, but I mean, we had the ZBA's recommendations, which is what we went with.
Well, that's all well and good, but are we required to advertise, and did we?
Are we required to advertise? No. Did we? I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, well, if we're not required, then I'm fine with it.
Could I have a motion?
Make a motion to appoint Elizabeth Hutchins to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Jonathan?
Aye.
Stan?
Aye.
And I'm a yes also.
Welcome.
Pardon me?
I'm just saying welcome to Liz.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Ms. Hutchins, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we need a motion to approve bills and payroll warrants W22-20 and W22-20A.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call. Jonathan?
Aye.
Stan?
Aye.
I'm a yes also. And then we have the minutes of March 10th from a regular session. Jenny, were there any edits?
Just one misspelling of the word usage.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of regular session of March 10th?
So moved.
Second,
Roll call, Jonathan,
aye.
Stan,
Aye.
and I'm a yes also. Don, is there anything else we need to address?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, could I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Roll call, Jonathan,
aye.
Stan,
Aye.
and I'm a yes also. All right, thank you very much, Stan and Jenny. Appreciate it very much.
Dan, what happened? Where were you?
I had internet issues.
We missed you.
Sorry. Well, I was trying to get back, so at least I got back. So.
Good, good.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night,
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.